Welcome to all. In today's session, we are going to discuss about motivating adults' basic aspects and issues. In this discussion, we have the expert, Dr. M.V. Lakshmi Reddy, who is the Program Coordinator of Master of Arts in Adult Education, and myself, Dr. Elizabeth Kuruvilla. All of us know that motivation is very much needed for any educational process. And when it comes to adult learning, we know that how to motivate the adults is different from how to motivate the children. Dr. Lakshmi Reddy, could you please explain the relevance of the psychology to adult learning?
I think you have rightly put this question. It is a most relevant question, and also it is necessary to explain how psychology is related to adult learning. Before that, let me say a word about psychology. Psychology can be defined as the scientific study of human behavior and experience. Here, human behavior is scientifically studied, and also the experience is scientifically studied by using psychology. That is the reason why without psychology, understanding human being is very difficult. Even if we understand, we may not be perfect in our understanding if you don't have the knowledge of psychology. That is how psychology is relevant as far as studying of human behavior and also experience is concerned. Now coming to educational psychology, it is in fact applied psychology, we can say. The educational psychology is the study of how humans learn in educational setting. There must be educational setting. In that setting they will be learning, but this educational psychology helps in understanding how human beings learn in the given educational settings, whether it is a child or the adult. They are expected to learn given there is educational setting. Then the effectiveness of interventions are there to be studied through psychology, and this psychology helps in studying or understanding the effectiveness of teaching and also effectiveness of learning. That is how the educational psychology helps in understanding both student and also the teacher himself, how the teacher should be dealing with the children. That is the reason why this educational psychology has a great relevance. And coming to psychology of social psychology of schools. These schools are educational institutions or the organizations, and how the educational organizations are perceived is also a matter of psychology. That is how psychology has a relevance not only in understanding the students, understanding himself as a teacher, and also the perceptions of different people about the very institutional setting, whether it is a school for children or it is a adult education center for adults, and how adult education instructor or adult educator has to deliver his part of duty to the adult learners. So this educational psychology is nothing but it is a science of education. That is, it helps in studying education in a scientific manner. It helps the teacher to understand the development of his students, how the students develop over the period of time, right from childhood to other stages, how they develop, then what is the range of their capacities or the limitations of their capacities, and the process by which they learn by and their social relationships. Because the for example, whether it is a school or adult education center, there are individuals, and these individuals have their social relationships. How these social relationships help in help the particular individuals to learn. If it is school, the children, how it helps, and if it is adult education center, how these relationships help in understanding each other and also in enabling themselves to learn. Coming to other aspects of psychology, for example, adult psychology, there is a child psychology. Both help in understanding the human being. Adult psychology helps in understanding adults, but if it is adult education, then adult educational psychology assumes greater relevance. That is how this psychology has a relevance to adult education. And prior to this, the adult has already undergone the school system, and there the adult psychology and the child educational psychology will be useful in delivering the things by the concerned instructors or the teachers. For example, there will be certain children with special needs. Whatever the psychology that is commonly studied will not help. As far as understanding of the children with special needs is concerned, there is a need to focus on certain other aspects of the individual. So that is the reason why the special educators have to understand their students in a more specific manner, because what is the kind of disability they suffer from has to be understood thoroughly. Similarly, adults also may be having certain peculiar problems like the special child. Similarly, adult also has to be studied from those perspectives as well, and psychology helps in understanding adults, whether they are normal adults or abnormal adults, like when children with special needs. It all helps in understanding the students and how they learn in the process. So this is the relevance of psychology as far as students and teachers are concerned, because understanding them is very important, so that appropriate teaching methods etc. can be applied.
So sir has detailed about what is the relevance of psychology when we deal with children or when it deals with adults. When we come to the topic that is motivating adults, could you please bring out how psychology help in motivating the adults to learn? Because normally we know that for children, what to do, what strategies to adopt. But as far as adults are concerned, they are completely different from children. So could you please explain about that, sir?
Yes, because for doing anything, motivation is required on the part of any individual. So here we need to understand what motivation is. Motivation is the process that initiates, guides, maintains goal-directed behaviors. Every individual has some goals set for achievement in their life. So what are those goals? So if they have set goals, whether they are moving in that direction or not. If they are not moving in that direction, then some kind of motivation is to be infused in them, so that they start acting towards that direction, and they are properly guided, or they themselves guide thereafter towards that direction, and maintain that pace with which they should be moving towards the goal. So if a person is motivated, then it is easy to achieve the set goals. Otherwise, it is very futile to set any goals also, because when they are not to be achieved, why to even set any goals? Then there is a need for harmony between the teacher and also the students. Unless there is harmony in the goal set for themselves, for example, student has his own goal and teacher has his own goal. Student has to learn, teacher has to teach, how effectively teacher can teach or has to teach, and how effectively learner is expected to learn. These are the important things, and that goal harmony is very much required. In the absence of that thing, this teaching and learning will be moving in different directions, and achievement of the goals in educational situation is not possible at all. Then of course, the goals set by the children and the goals set by the adults will be different, and how they learn also is different. For example, child learning is there. Child learning has its own domains, in fact. For example, there are 5 domains as far as the child learning is concerned, because there is a physical domain, cognitive domain, language domain, social domain, and emotional domains, because these are all the domains in which the child is expected to grow. Where there is necessary, this motivation has to be brought in, then only the proper learning will take place. For example, small child is there, even if it 5-6 months also, then we may be trying to hold him by hands, and so that exercise can be given to the legs, hands, etc. That is how physical movements are gradually taught, rather as a form of training. Similarly, social aspects, emotional aspects are also to be brought in by making the child to learn language, and also finally these domains, 5 domains are improved as far as the learning is concerned by the children. So next is child learning is linked with the development, because as we know, development of child follows a specified pattern. So the learning also will be accordingly tuned towards that pattern. So there must be compatibility, because we can predict the development, and also learning also should be in consonance with the pattern of development. Otherwise, these experiences may be higher or lower, which children cannot adjust themselves to. And it will be in a sequential manner. Child starts with learning, and it follows certain sequence, and also it is a cumulative learning. It goes on accumulating as far as the children are concerned. Learning won't disappear, and outcomes are very clear, easily accessible, and before that they are easily identifiable. And these are learning trend or patterns are almost common as far as children are concerned, except among those with special needs, because they cannot maintain their learning on the same pace as that of normal children. Same is the case with adults who have some learning disabilities. Now, adults also learn, but their learning is totally different from that of children, because there are certain variables because of which the learning on the part of adults is diversified, and it depends upon their age. First and foremost thing is age, and age determines their learning ability and experience. It matters a lot. People with experience in doing certain things or learning certain things, they can easily learn. Similarly, needs determine. If there is a need to learn anything, then they will definitely learn. And similarly, there must be interest to learn. Even if there is a need, if the adults do not have interest to learn, then they cannot proceed any further in that thing. And moreover, even if there is a need, even if they have ability, unless and until they have ability to learn, they cannot do that also. Then if there are problems, naturally to address the problems, they try to find some solutions in the process. They will be learning, but their learning will be totally different from how children will learn. And further, there is a self-concept in adults which is not there in the young children. As they grow, they also develop a self-concept, and this self-concept determines their learning also. If their self-concept is hurt, then they would not proceed in learning anything. Then living conditions and quality of life of adults do matter as far as their learning is concerned. Because as far as children are concerned, all conditions are actually facilitated by the parents. In the case of adults, they are expected to discharge so many duties, and they are responsible for many things. So their living conditions are totally different, and their quality of life also accordingly will be different, and that also is one of the factors that determines adult learning. Another thing is lifestyle and aspirations. So a person may be rich, and his lifestyle accordingly may be different. Sometimes even rich people will be very simple, and they may be having certain aspirations which are very high. Sometimes these aspirations may not be in harmony with their capacities and abilities, etc. In such cases, they will not be in a position to learn properly. Then these adults' rights, responsibilities, and their accountability are totally different from those of the children. So learning here also is totally different, and they need to have orientation to their living, working, and learning situations. Unless they have their own orientation towards a particular thing, learning will not take place. And these are all important things that need to be considered, and all these will act as a motivating or demotivating factors in their learning. That is the reason why there are certain principles of adult learning which are different from learning of the children or teaching of the children. For example, when children are being taught, it is a normal principle that the teaching should proceed from simple to complex, from known thing to unknown thing, from concrete thing to abstract. Like that, there are certain people, but those principles will not be helpful in the case of adult learning, because adults are quite mature. They have already learnt many things, and they have a lot of experiences, and they need to be taught differently. And there are certain principles related to adult learning. First of all, if there is a need to know, then only they will be learning. That is one of the important principles. And another thing is, they want to build upon the experience. If it is already known, then they will ignore it. If experience is something new and related to their previous experience, then they will try to build upon it. That is another principle of adult learning. Then self-concept is there, and they will be rather they should be treated well. Then only they will be in a position to learn. And once that self-concept is respected, they will be moving even themselves in a right direction, and it will be a kind of self-directed learning also, unlike the children. For children, we need to tell you learn like this. But for adults, once they know about it, then they proceed. And at the same time, there should be readiness to learn. For example, in the case of children, we force them to go to school, and they have to go to school and they have to learn. Here, you cannot force adults to learn. They must be ready to learn. So their readiness to learn also is one of the important principles to be kept in mind. And problem-centered orientation. Learners, adult learners, they will be having problems. They need to address their problems, and they will have certain orientation, and whatever learning is to be acquired, it must be problem oriented. Then only the learning will be happening in the adults. And these adult learners are mostly motivated from inside. outside motivation will work less on them, unlike children. For children, okay, by offering any enticement, like it may be few 100 rupees or some
Toys
kind of
or
toys
so.
or chocolate or something else, they may be motivated to learn something. In this case, it doesn't work well unless and until it is related to any one of these earlier principles that have been discussed. Otherwise, they will not have that kind of motivation impact from outside sources. So these are all the basic differences in motivating children and also adults, and I have focused mostly on how these things can work in motivating adults.
Okay. So, sir has elaborated on the relevance of psychology to adult learning, as well as how the motivating adults is different from motivating children. When we hear these two, so which one do you think is more difficult? Whether motivating adults is difficult or motivating children? What's your opinion, sir?
Motivating adults is certainly very difficult task, because as I told just a minute ago, these children can be influenced very easily by external factors.
Yes.
Because internally they are not motivated to learn. That here in the case of adults, these external factors, unless and until they have greater relevance to their learning, will not be acting as a motivating factor. That is the reason why intrinsic motivation is a more relevant thing for adult learning, because of which adults are capable of learning on their own with little motivation.
Yes. So we can see that our learners, they are ODL learners, and we know that how much they are motivated and how we can motivate them. So this intrinsic motivation is very much important. So already sir has stated about the what is motivation, how it derives and everything. What are the different types of motivation?
I think you are the expert in this field. You are master of psychology. Huh? Why don't you throw a light on these aspects from your side?
So when we think that already sir has stated in his description that there are two types of motivation, extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. So when we try to motivate through the outside manner, we call it as extrinsic motivation. And when it comes from inner urge, that is known as the intrinsic motivation. So in such cases, as I stated earlier, you can see that the ODL learners, they are studying from a remote place and they are distant from the teacher. So the motivation should come from the inner urge. Otherwise, they cannot complete. That's why we can see there are so many dropout rates in the matter of the ODL learners. So in this case, we can see that the intrinsic motivation is more important as far as the adults are concerned. And we know that there are different types of theories of motivation also. Different theories. When we think of this intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, it is better to put some light on the different theories of motivation. When we look at the psychology textbook, we can see that there are different theories of motivation where it is divided into content theories and process theories. But as far as the adults are concerned, we can see that there are some theories of motivation which are more relevant as far as for the learning of the adults or to motivate the adults. So let us classify the theories of motivation like that: the physiological needs theory, then the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the next one we can see that the physiological needs of theory of motivation, and the last one, McClelland's achievement theory of motivation. So we have divided these theories into the four. So let us have a glance on the theories. So here the first one what we have stated is the psychoanalytic theory. When we hear the term psychoanalytic theory, there we can see that this theory was put forward by Sigmund Freud, where we know that psychoanalysis is an important aspect, and Freud claimed that human psychology could be classified into three, that is id, ego and superego. And here the psychosis of the human mind can be divided especially into two, conscious mind and unconscious mind, which composed of the three components id, ego and superego. Let us see what does this ego represents. The ego represents the conscious mind, where it is made up of the thoughts, memories, judgments and feelings. We can see that it gives an adult their sense of identity and personality. The id indicating the unconscious mind. So there are some kind of the urges that remains in the unconscious mind, and at last we can see the component that is the superego, which represents the moderating portion of society's traditional morals and taboos. So here within these three components, which is divided into the conscious and unconscious mind, based on this there are some kind of urges depending upon the adults. And psychoanalysis theory states that feelings, behavior, urges, motives of people get influenced through the unconscious aspect of the mind. And it studies how psychological forces that are unconscious influence the behaviors of individuals. Then we can see that many of us, we are trying to work from the conscious mind, what is there, what we have received from others. So how this theory is relevant in the case of adults is that when there is a willpower only, they can act. So some kind of urge, the willpower should be in the mind of the adults. As stated earlier, the adults, they are coming from different background. They have so many responsibilities. Within the workplace responsibilities, household responsibilities, they are coming for the learning purpose. So they should have their own urge in their mind. That is, an intrinsic motivation is very much needed. Coming to the second theory that is displayed on the screen, we can see that it is Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory. And here, Abraham Maslow first introduced the hierarchy of needs in the year 1943 in his paper titled A Theory of Human Motivation, which is later transferred into a book titled Motivation and Personality. This hierarchy, we can see that it is a hierarchy of the needs. So you can show the hierarchy of needs, that which shows that there are different types of hierarchy of needs, that these needs, you can see that it is pyramidal in shape, where it consists of 5 needs. And how it is going from the lower needs to the higher needs. So people are motivated basically to fulfill the basic needs before moving to the advanced needs. So what is this theory states that our actions are motivated by certain psychological and physiological needs that progress from basic to complex. So let us see what are the different types of needs. So here the physiological needs comes first. The physiological needs include those that are vital to survival. So when we look at the pyramid itself, we can see that at the bottom, the physiological needs was written. What are the physiological needs? They are food, air, sleep, so all shelter. All these things are the physiological needs. Until and unless the physiological needs are satisfied, one cannot step up to the second level of needs, that is the that needs is the safety and security needs. So we can see that after satisfying the physiological needs, the next ladder is the safety and security needs. What does it mean that the safety and security needs? We need that financial security, health and wellness security, safety against accidents and injury. This is also important very much in everybody's life. And after satisfying these safety needs, we are going further to the social needs. That is the third ladder. So these social needs, we can see that here what is important, the love and belongingness is very much needed at this level. Otherwise, we can say that the adults also expect more kind of affiliation. So here the social needs in Maslow's hierarchy, it include the love, acceptance, recognition, belonging, and at this level, the level for emotional relationships drives human behavior. Some of the things that satisfied this need, that this include that the friendship circle is important, then the family relationships is important, social group is important, community group is important, and churches and religious organization that gives a bonding that there are somebody to ask or to take care of them. It is an important thing. Otherwise, there will create the loneliness, depression, and anxiety. In order to avoid loneliness, depression, and anxiety, it is important for people to feel loved and accepted by others. So here, these three needs which I explain, how we can connect it with the adult learners. So first thing, we know that the adult learners, especially Indira Gandhi National Open University, offering programs that our motto itself, reaching to the unreached. So the unreached may be deprived of the basic needs. Sometimes the food they may not be getting much properly, and proper water, and their shelter also not having that type of things. So there are different heterogeneous learners we can see in the case of the adult learners. So first, the teacher has to understand the background of the learners, and in such case, the satisfaction of the physiological needs is very much important. After that, the safety and security needs. Many of the learners who comes for the learning purpose, the adult learners, they are taking loans. The financial difficulty may be there. So some kind of effort, if we take that, let them learning by doing, where Gandhiji stated that the basic education, where learning by doing, while they are learning, they can earn something. In such kind of way, some arrangement is made. It gives some kind of security in the mind of the learners. Then comes the social needs, where we can see that this social needs is very much important. And then what is happening is that the teacher, educator should give love and affection to the children, though they are coming from the different background. So we have discussed the three needs. Now we have a break for 2-3 minutes. After that, we will continue the discussion on the Maslow's theory of needs. Be online. Thank you. Welcome back to the session titled Motivating Adults, Basic Aspects and Issues. The expert, Dr. Lakshmi Reddy, and myself, Dr. Elizabeth Kuruvilla. In the previous session, we have wound up that discussing about the various theories of motivation. And in that, we have classified the theories as psychoanalytic theory, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, physiological theory of motivation, and then coming to the McClelland's theory of achievement motivation. And here, while discussing the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there we have discussed about the physiological needs, safety needs, and social needs. Coming to the esteem needs, which is the fourth level of the hierarchy of needs pyramid, we can see that this esteem needs, it is a need for appreciation and respect. This is an important thing, especially the adults are concerned. Once the needs at the bottom level, they are satisfied, the esteem needs begin to play a major role in motivating behavior. So at this level, we can see that it becomes increasingly important to gain the respect and appreciation of others. So what is needed that a teacher has to appreciate the adult learners, and people have a need to accomplish things, then have their efforts recognized. So here, this esteem needs that leads to a good development of the self-concept, where Dr. Lakshmi Reddy has stated that the self-concept is an important thing in the psychology of the adult learning. And then we can see that this esteem needs has severe implication as far as the adult learners are concerned. The next theory, that is the Morgan's physiological theory of motivation. What is the core content of this theory is that the central motive state. So here there is a central motive state in the brain which is base for all the human activities and behavior. So an organism can be stimulated externally either through chemical or physical agents which is transmitted to the central motive state through nerves as electrical impulses. So here this central motive state, it has four basic characteristics features such as the persistent, selectivity, general activity, and emission of certain behavior pattern. What does this persistent mean? Persistent mean that once the organism was aroused, the central motive state does not require any support internally or externally, or otherwise we can state that intrinsically or extrinsically. Then comes the general activity, where a motivated organism has a heightened bodily activity. Regarding the selectivity, we can see that it results in selectivity of reaction to stimuli. And coming to the fourth feature, that is emission of certain behavior pattern, there the central motive state prompts the organism for appropriate consummatory behavior. So how this theory has not much importance as far as the adults concerned, but there are some factors which is important, that the central motive state, which urges the adults to learn on their own. And then comes the theory, another theory which is relevant regarding the adults are concerned, that is the McClelland's theory of need for achievement. So here we can see that the theory of achievement motivation, it can be divided into the three basic needs, that is need for achievement, need for affiliation, and need for power. What does this need for achievement mean? This is related to achieving excellence, because now this excellence concept is coming, and the excellence goals that are challenging, overcoming obstacles and difficulties, competition and persistence, need to master skills, and so on. So this type of skill development, it's happening. So here the need for achieving all those skills is important in the minds of the adult learners. And the next one, that is the need for affiliation, that is relating to maintaining close and intimate relationship with others. People high on need for achievement want to be liked by others. So they may make several groups, they try to influence others, get belongingness with others. So their self-esteem they will try to develop. So this is very important as far as the adult learners is concerned. And then the need for power, which is related to having an influence, impact and control over others. People that, especially the adults who are high on need for power, would like to influence others and make an impact on others. When we look all these theories, these five theories, we can see that which theory is more important to adults. All the theories are important. It depends upon the context where the adults are coming from and on what purpose they have taken their study purpose. So all these theories have their own relevance as far as the adult learners are concerned. So the topic what we are discussing is motivating adults, basic aspects and issues. Till now we didn't come to the basic aspects and issues. Dr. Lakshmi Reddy, what are the basic aspects that are important in motivating the adults? Could you please explain?
In fact, I have already highlighted certain aspects that determine the adult learning. Same aspects are equally applicable to motivating the adults as well.
Yes.
One major difference between child and adult is the domains in which the children are engaged are limited, whereas in the case of adults, entire life, it is a lifelong and life-wide experiences in different domains, and all those domains in which they are busy with, they are to be taken into account, or they play important role in their motivation. That is one important thing, the domains in which they are engaged in their life. Next is age, at what age they are and in what domain they are working. That has a relationship between the two. Certain ages will not allow some people to perform certain other things. Similarly, experience related aspects are there. If something new is being given to adults, they may feel slightly disturbed as to how to do it or how to learn it. Similarly, if certain needs have emerged, they know about basic needs, certain other needs which you have already highlighted in your different theories. But in addition to that, if certain needs emerged all of a sudden, and their needs are to be taken into account so that they can get immediately motivated. And similarly, if interest is missing, interest needs to be developed so that the adults will learn effectively. If ability is not there, how to increase their ability to do certain thing better? If that can be provided to the adults, they will feel more motivated. That is another important aspect, ability aspect. And problems, what is the nature of a problem, what is the magnitude of the problem they are facing? This is an important aspect. Unless and until these problems are addressed effectively, they cannot be effective in learning. So that will serve as a motivating factor. As you have rightly pointed out in Maslow's hierarchy theory, where there is self-esteem, it is a self-concept. They have that we. If unless and until that we is respected, they will not be learning. What are all the conditions that is that are determining that self-concept have to be thoroughly taken into account. Another thing is living conditions. If the living conditions are rather amenable to the peaceful living of the individuals, then there can be better learning, because basic needs are these things. Unless and these basic needs are fulfilled, you cannot think of motivating the adults. And lifestyle, what is their lifestyle? Are they busy in the entire day with something else, and where you wanted to ask them to learn a particular thing which is totally different? It cannot match well with that. And another thing is achievement related aspects. So if they are achieving well, then they can easily get motivated. If they are not achieving well in anything, first they must be facilitated to achieve in what they are engaged. Then only you can bring in your element of promoting learning among them. That is a important thing. Another aspect is orientation. As I have already highlighted in the learning matters, unless and until they are oriented to proper living, proper working, and proper learning, you cannot bring in motivation in them. But there are factors which will be differently influencing different adult learners.
Okay, sir. You have highlighted the basic aspects that motivate the adults to learn. And earlier we have explained about the theories of motivation. Whether that theories of motivation alone is enough to motivate the adult learners, or do you think that there needs some kind of approaches? If some approaches are needed, could you highlight what are the approaches?
In fact, all theories may not be equally relevant to all adults, because we have rightly highlighted different theories and different aspects of motivation you have rightly pointed out. But out of these things, you have to tailor them to different learners. So how you will be approaching towards these particular learners, that will matter. For example, for some adults, needs-based approach will help. If particular need is fulfilled, then only I will learn. In such cases, what else you will do? You have to follow that needs. Okay, if this is one need, what more needs you have? You must focus on addressing their needs first. That is a needs-based approach. Okay. Next is friendly approach. If you think that you are assistant professor, or I think that I am associate professor, it won't work well, and friendly approach is required. And individual contact is required in their case, and that is another approach. And one more approach is participatory approach. You have to engage them in your interaction, and you must facilitate them to effectively participate in that. Then they will be more interested. Similarly, achievement approach. If there is achievement by your meeting them, then they will be immediately motivated. So achievement approach is another thing. And realistic approach. Okay, if all these things are not working, whatever the approach, friendly approach, other approaches, then what really works? What exactly the adults expect? Because you have thorough knowledge of different theories of learning, motivation, etc. But unless and until realistic approach is followed, it will not be of any help. So that is the reason why sometimes creative approaches are required. You have to invent them, which suits well to these people.
So highlighted about the various approaches. Do you think that all these approaches equally work well with adults?
No, certainly not. I have already highlighted that no one approach will work equally well with all others. You have to mix different approaches, even if necessary, to meet particular set of adults or group of adults, so that approach may be appropriate for them. That is the reason why it is a crucial issue, motivating the adults.
Yes. So we have come to the second part of our topic. We have covered the basic aspects. Coming to the issues, so what are the crucial issues related to choosing a particular approach to motivate adults to learn?
See, first and foremost thing you have to keep in mind is the nature and character of adult or particular group of adults. Accordingly, you should notice the issue, relevant issue. Then next thing is what kind of goal that the individual has set or the particular group of adults have set, and they need to orient them towards that goal. Then is whether one theory works or two theories work, all the theories put together work, you have to choose which theory, which approach will work. That is how it needs to be addressed. Another thing is, if you can combine all the related approaches, that will work as an excellent strategy, and that will be more appropriate to people with diversity in their living, working and other aspects.
So, generally, when we deal with these adult learners, they may sometimes arise questions like that. Could you please suggest some kind of motivational strategies for adopting to learn in a better way? Could you suggest some of the motivational strategies?
You see, for example, you are here as assistant professor, I am here as an associate professor. We know pretty well that what will help us in our promotion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We always look at what that criteria. What criteria are there?
Yes.
Academic
Criteria.
There is a scoring pattern.
Yes.
What is that called? Academic performance
appraisal.
Appraisal form fill where index is there, and accordingly you will try to fulfill all those criteria. Similarly, for example, adults are there, and if he received some letter, or if he has some form which is to be filled, which he cannot fill, and if the person approached refuses to fill it, then he gets motivated, and sometimes it may work as a best motivating factor also. Okay, why I should always approach somebody else? Let me myself learn. That will serve as an effective motivating factor. Like that, unless and until there is a real life related factor that can really bring in change in them, they will not be motivated, and that only the thing that needs to be considered when we attempt to motivate the adults. Otherwise, they will take it very lightly because they want to maintain status quo if it is suiting them well, because at that stage only they wanted to remain. That is their self concept, in fact. So if our concept is to move ahead further to achieve particular goal and move further ahead with the setting up of new goals, that will help very effectively as far as motivation of adults is concerned.
Okay, sir has rightly stated about the motivational strategies for the adults. But as far as the learning is concerned, the urge should come from inside, which we call it as the intrinsic motivation. So such type of strategies they have to find out on their own and make learning as a lively process. So we are winding up. Thank you, sir, for your valuable discussion on the topic motivating adults, basic aspects and issues, and thank you for the patient listening of the learners. Thank you.